All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So if you're a ServiceNow developer, you know the deal. Building cool stuff is only like half the job, right? The other half is making sure all that brilliant work you did actually keeps working after every single update, every patch, every enhancement. And that's what we're going to focus today. We're diving into automated testing, which is honestly one of the most important skills you can have. Think of it like building a safety net for everything you create.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The ServiceNow platform, it never sits still. It's always evolving. You've got new features dropping, patches getting rolled out, plus your own team is constantly pushing out new updates. And with every single one of those changes, there's this little voice in the back of your head going, did I just break something? You know, that's the exact problem the Automated Test Framework, or ATF, is built to solve. It's that safety net. It automatically checks your work, catches those sneaky bugs, and lets you find them before your users do.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the basics, what automated testing even is. Then we'll go through a pre-flight checklist, super important. After that, the fun part, building your very first test. We'll cover some pro tips to make your tests really solid, and we'll wrap up with how to run and organize everything.
All right, first up, the do's and don'ts. Before we jump in, we've got to set some ground rules. ATF it's a fantastic tool. It really is, but you have to use it for the right job. Knowing what it's good at and what it's not good at, that's the key to everything. So ATF has a real sweet spot. It is perfect for functional testing. Making sure your business logic does what it's supposed to do, like does that approval workflow actually route to the right manager? It's also a lifesaver for regression testing. That's where you check that a new feature didn't accidentally break something old. And yeah, it's pretty good for browser compatibility. But look at the not recommended list. This is just as important. ATF is not a load testing tool. Don't use it to see if your instance can handle 1,000 users. And don't try to test every single tiny UI element. And the big one, never, ever run it in production.
Look, I know we just said it, but this is so important it gets its own slide. Seriously. Never test in a production instance. Your automated tests are creating records, they're changing things, they're deleting stuff. Imagine that happening with your live customer data. You're just asking for data corruption, performance nightmares, and a really, really bad day. Just don't do it. Always, always use a subprod instance.
Okay, let's talk planning. Because a good test suite isn't about just diving in and writing code. That's a recipe for disaster. You gotta have a plan first. It's like building a house without a blueprint. It's going to get messy.
So the big question is, where do you even start with a plan like that? Well, turns out there are a few key questions you need to ask yourself.
You really need to sit down with your team and hash these out before you write anything. Like, how detailed are we going to get? Are we testing one tiny business rule or a whole end-to-end process? Who's going to own these tests and keep them updated when things change? What do we do if we have to change something just to make a test work? How do we keep track of the stuff that ATF just can't test? And how do we reuse tests for common things? Seriously, figuring this stuff out now will save you so many headaches later. And while you're planning, just keep this one principle in your head. KISS. Keep it short and simple. Here's why that's so important. An automated test stops the second it finds a failure. So imagine you have this one giant monster test that checks 5 different things. If the very first thing fails, you never even find out if the other 4 were broken. But if you have 5 small, simple tests, one for each thing, bam, you find all 5 bugs in one go. It's just way more efficient.
Okay, enough planning. Let's get our hands dirty. It's time to actually build our first test. And the good news is, a really solid, reliable test boils down to just 3 core steps. You're going to want to follow this pattern every single time. Seriously. Step 1, always create and impersonate a user. Why? Because if you don't, the test just runs as you, an admin, and that's not a real-world test of what your users can actually do. Step 2 is easy. You just do the thing you want to test, like updating a record. But step 3, this one is super critical. Don't just rely on the record update step. It can lie to you. It might say pass, even if a business rule or a data policy totally blocked your update. You have to add a separate record validation step to prove the change actually happened.
Okay, so you've built a basic test. That's awesome. Now let's level up. We're going to go over a few pro tips that will take your tests from just good to great. The kind of robust, resilient tests that really save the day.
All right, I want you to look closely at this little checkbox. You've probably seen it a million times when you add a test step in force security. It's always checked by default, and it can be so tempting to just uncheck it to make a test pass. But trust me, this little box is way more important than it looks.
So what does it do? Basically, that checkbox makes your test obey all the security rules on your platform, your access controls, your ACLs. When it's checked, your test is acting like a real user. The moment you uncheck it, you're giving that one test step temporary admin powers. And here's the trap. If your test only passes when that box is unchecked, that's a huge red flag. It means your actual users probably can't do what you're testing. That's why this one little thing is the cause of so many test failures that just seem to come out of nowhere.
Okay, pro tip number 2, dynamic selection. This is a game changer. So instead of hard coding your test to, say, always use incident number 12345, you teach it how to find a good record to use every time it runs. It's a difference between giving someone a specific fish versus teaching them how to fish.
And why is this so much better? Well, for one, your tests won't just randomly break because someone deleted or changed that one record you were depending on. It also makes moving your tests between instances, like from dev to test, 1,000 times easier, no more broken references. And my favorite part? It adds a little bit of randomness. By using different records, you might just stumble on those weird edge case bugs, like the one that only happens when a user doesn't have a manager listed in their profile. It's just smarter. We're almost at the finish line. You've got the plan, you've built some solid tests. Now we just need to talk about running them, and, just as important, keeping them organized. Because a great test you can't find is, well, it's not a great test. So here are a few quick execution tips for you. First, always run your whole test suite before a big platform upgrade. Make sure your tests still work. For a quick speed boost, change the screenshot settings to Enable for Failed Steps Only. It makes a huge difference. And finally, if you can, run your tests in parallel. It'll get you your results way, way faster. All right, let's talk about staying organized with naming standards. This might seem kind of boring, but listen, when you go from having 10 tests to having 100 or even 1,000, trying to find the one you need becomes a total nightmare if you don't have a system. This isn't just about being neat. It's about making your work usable for you and your team 6 months from now.
And here's a super simple but really effective way to do it. Just start with the app's initials, like ITSM or CSM, then a colon, then a quick description of what it does. So a test suite could be something like ITSM int use cases, and a specific test inside that might be CSM resolve case. See how clear that is? It's easy to read, easy to search, and it works no matter how many tests you have. And that's pretty much the whole shebang. We've gone through the why, we've talked about the plan, and we've walked through the how. You have everything you need to get started. You're ready. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought. That safety net for your platform is just sitting there, waiting for you to build it. So think about it. What's that one piece of business logic you've built that absolutely positively cannot break? What's the very first test you're going to build to make sure it never does?